Okay, bowl season's upon us, and we got Tony Miller from the Golden Nugget. The college games of the year back in early June. Tony, you had those first numbers up. This has been a really popular endeavor for the Nugget over the years. You want to win money on it, but the national publicity and the image you get, obviously it was a very big part of the equation. You've won most years, but you had a couple of stumbling blocks this year, didn't you?
Yeah, buddy. Usually when we put these things up in June, Aaron and I, when we put them up, we put a lot of opinion into them. We have a lot of our own thoughts, our own opinions on who's going to be good. And so when we shade the numbers, we shade them good. And when we do that and we open them up on day one, all the wise guys out there who also have their strong opinions, it's us against them. And unfortunately, this year we had some strong opinions on some teams that we didn't think were going to be that good, like TCU, like Baylor, a couple of teams that, we just didn't think we were going to be that good. And they turned out to be very well. And we took it on the chops with them. So that's what happened this year.
You mentioned Aaron. It's Aaron Kessler. He's kind of your right-hand man, and you guys huddle up and form these opinions at the beginning of the year. And that's no easy chore. I mean, when you're doing something like that, you really are sticking your neck out.
Right, we do. We throw up so many games, and there's so many different scenarios that go up with these things as far as coming up with the point spreads, and it's a tedious chore. We get them up, but you know what happens when we put them up that early? Things happen during the summer, and guys get hurt, suspensions happen, and by the time the game comes out in the fall, we could be off on these spreads sometimes up to 14 points, and that creates a big middle opportunity out there for some bettors.
All right, you mentioned a team like TCU where, hey, listen, I mean, as much as guessing's a bad word in this game, but you've got a first opinion. The problem is you got the same information the players do. You guys loved Oregon and UCLA. Oregon absolutely, for the most part, all year long, rewarded that opinion. UCLA, I know you guys loved them. And, I go back to that game against Virginia, and they were so pedestrian, and they just kind of were treading water for a while. Well, wait a minute. All of a sudden, they found their groove, and they're really the team now you thought they were going to be all year long.
Yeah, they started really late for me. I was probably to blame for the UCLA debacle at the beginning because, I really thought they'd be a lot stronger than they were. I thought Hundley, for sure, being quarterback for the Bruins, would probably be a big Heisman candidate. They started off slow. They didn't play very well. We got our heads handed to us on those first few games. And finally, I believe when they went to ASU, they destroyed the Sun Devils in Sun Devil Stadium, and they finally turned the season around up until the very end, and they made some money for us.
All right, so let's talk about bowl season. And it's a pretty unique animal, isn't it? There's so many different factors. On the front end, you would say, oh, this is the easiest thing we do because all our power ratings are based on what teams would be if they played each other on a neutral field. The problem is in many of these bowl games, there is no such thing because now you got to figure out who's going to travel. I mean, there are a lot of gray areas to this.
Exactly. And some of these bowl games, teams just don't have the interest that you think they might have going to them. The lower tier bowls you've got to be real careful with. We take high limits on them, and some of these players just want to go along for the trip and for the ride and get the feel of a bowl game where it's a lot different than the New Year's Day or New Year's Eve bowls where it really means a whole lot. So yeah, you got to be careful of the weather, the situation, how many fans are traveling, how far they're going. There's so many scenarios that go into it, Brian.
I was specifically going to ask you about the motivation thing because that's, there's so many bowls now. The 6-6 team could be doing a cartwheel. They're thrilled to be there. And I looked at all the bowl games. In reality, I'm telling you, the Chick-fil-A Bowl in Atlanta could be the best game of the whole kit and caboodle with Ole Miss and that defense going against TCU. The problem is you don't know if either one of them gives a rat's ass, to be honest. Do they care?
Yeah, I know. That's the problem we face. But, the bottom line is they still want to win the game. If they still have rankings at the end of the season, they still like to finish maybe in the top four. It's a little prestige things when you get to Ole Miss and TCU. They play great all year. I cannot see them laying down right now. But when you get to other games like Colorado State and Utah or something like that, That's where I have issues with some of these players really wanting to be in it and get their heads in it.
All right, you mentioned in a previous discussion, and you've always told me this, specifically knowing your clientele. You get a lot of money from Wisconsin, from Minnesota people, so you kind of know where people are going to come at you. Right now, I don't know who would want to bet Wisconsin after getting destroyed 51-0 by Ohio State. But the fact is that these teams are really public teams. Some are really public teams. In your book, you know where certain people are going to come from. Is it enhanced, or do you inflate the numbers, or do you play with numbers a little more? Because these numbers are up a long time. They get the early professional opinion, then they get stagnant, then there'll be movement leading up to kickoff.
Right.
But because it's a bowl game and people have so much time, and you have a big clientele base where tourists come into town and want to take tickets home, these numbers are going to be up a long time.
Right.
Because they're up so long, how does that change what you do?
You're definitely right, Brian. Here at the Golden Nugget, we tend to get a lot of Wisconsin and Minnesota tourists that come in here, and they love the Golden Nugget. And for some reason, I get so much money bet on the futures with anything in Wisconsin, anything in Minnesota. So here's a great example. The baseball season starts in a few months, and right now, my numbers on the Milwaukee Brewers are probably lower than anybody in town because of that reason. Now the bowl games here, the Wisconsin Bowl, we know that people that come to town love betting their Wisconsin. They love their Packers. They love their Brewers. They love, the Bucks. Hey, that's okay. I'll shade the number a little bit, but if I know that I know now how Wisconsin football is, so I might not shade it that much because to me they're not that great of a team. But teams like the Packers though, and teams like the Brewers that haven't started yet, I'll get a ton of money on them, and this is not the place to bet teams from Wisconsin or Minnesota, trust me.
The fact that we've got a Final Four now, the handle for the title game, as big as that's been, I would think will just balloon leaps and bounds with people, what they last saw, and it's going to build an even bigger crescendo because the title game's up. Sometimes it was up 51 days, and people are just indifferent to it, and then you get the walk-up. Right. I would think that Monday, right after we get the semifinal games, how much higher do you think the handle will be on the championship game?
Well, this is the first year of the playoff scenario, and I said all along, people wanted this, now it's here, and it's really reflected in my numbers coming over the counter as far as money coming in. I'm getting so much more handle now on the semifinals, and I have scenarios up on the finals. It's a big boost to college football. It's been a great thing. People more interested. And once the semifinals get here, you're going to see those two games in particular, unlike the past, they mean a lot more. These two games now, are played on the same day. The winners go to the championship game. And by the time the championship game gets here, it means a whole lot more than it has in the past. And I wouldn't be surprised to see my numbers double.
All right. No, I think this will be really interesting because you're matching wits with what's going on the other side of the counter. It started with the college games of the year. Incredible foresight on your part. You guys put out, and you did so much work putting up prospective college bowl playoff scenarios for the semifinals and the finals, which meant that you had 32 or 33 games, and all but 3 of those scenarios were refunds.
We use the top 8 teams.
So you put a lot of work into that. Now, with the money that was taken on those offerings, and I know you had Bama 3 against Oregon was the favorite one. Then you combine the college games of the year where you had people in here early on in future wagers. What is it you can do, and maybe if bettors were watching, is like maybe you had a unique number or another book had a unique number. It may be because of liability that's been built up with futures, and then you threw another little coal on the fire with these bowl playoff scenarios.
Yeah. Hey, we look at the futures all the way down to the last week, and I don't change much because I don't change my spreads every week so much because of the futures. No, but the scenarios were a really good thing for us as far as creating interest. We use the top 8 teams, and every week we added some, we took some down, and we don't get a lot of money on, Brian. We got a lot of money on the semifinal games, and we got a lot of money going into the final game. So it turned out real good. But my future numbers, no, I do not use those to offset spreads on games at all.
Okay. I got to ask you about coaches, because that would be the one thing I would say. Since I've come here, and maybe met resistance in terms of opinion, like in the NFL. To me, in his heyday, I was always told Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, maybe a point and a half player. I think Rob Gronkowski is a 3.5, 4-point player. He's a tight end. But what the Patriots are with him and what they are without him in the red zone is night and day, and that's been borne out. But I think there's kind of resistance to that. The other thing I say, what is a coach worth to the wagering line? And I don't know that enough stock is put on that. And when you get to the bowls, you've got all this extra time to prepare. It's not now, I got to rush and be regimented. I got my 1 week to get ready for a game. The coach's challenge is preparing for the other team, but to get his team to peak at the right time and keep them focused for being off so long and not let rust come in there. What should a coach be worth? I mean, and if in your opinion there's a real coaching mismatch, do you ever, I know market numbers are market numbers, but do you shade something because of a coach?
Man, I'll tell you what, there's times, there's certain coaches, Belichick's a great example. I know if Belichick is in a game against somebody, crazy, now who I don't think is a good coach, like Andy Reid, to me, that could be worth maybe 3 or 4 points, Brian.
I bring it up, remember, Joe Paterno. They could be a slow, plotty, ordinary football team, but this guy just never lost bowl games.
Right. I agree, man. There's certain coaches out there, especially in the NFL, you really got to respect as far as their game plan and how they use their timeouts. Pete Carroll's a great coach, man. He can take his players and he can do things with them that I don't think a lot of coaches can do. Kelly of the Eagles is another great example. The game plan he had against Dallas, where he had the no-huddle offense and he didn't have those Dallas defensive linemen getting off the field in time, and they were winded, and they just ran the ball down the throat of the Cowboys. That's and sometimes he uses that, and sometimes he doesn't. You know what? I'll take Belichick on my team and on my side and use his game plans against any coach in the world. And as long as you got a good quarterback like Brady and, like you said, Gronkowski inside the red zone, Belichick, Gronkowski, and Brady, man, that's a threesome there I wouldn't want to go up against.
Really appreciate you taking your time. Just a couple more for you. Talking bowl football with Tony Miller, the director of race and sports at the Golden Nugget. Are totals the numbers that would dance more than anything leading up to kickoff? For the most part, weather's not too big of an issue, in these games. But are totals something that you'll see? That's where you're going to get some steam leading up to a game?
Absolutely. Especially this time of year with the weather conditions, Brian. I talk to Aaron every week, and on Monday morning I said, look at the weather cities this year. Make sure, this week, make sure it's not snowing, it's not raining. That can affect the total 3-4 points either direction, up or down. So it's really crazy. And now getting off the subject of football, you go to college basketball totals. My God, those things are moving 4, 5, 6, 7 points every day off the only numbers. So each sport's different and each scenario is different, and we're on those things every day.
And you wouldn't think, but it's actually part of this Rubik's Cube you're putting together is injuries. Because they're practicing, and, college football practice, probably not like the NFL with collective bargaining and no pads. These guys trying to keep these guys focused. A lot of times in these bowl games, they get after it in practice to try to keep a game edge. And there are injuries that will pop up in these bowl games.
Absolutely, man. That happened to us with the games of the year. We put games up, and then a couple weeks later, half the team suspended for something or a major injury comes down. It happens right now, too. These bowl games coming up, or even in the NFL with the playoffs looming right around the corner, we got to be real careful of injuries, how it can affect the team. A great example is the Cardinal game last night. Stanton goes out, and now they're down to their third-string quarterback, and we got to take a look at that in the futures when we put the numbers back up to win the Super Bowl and also the following week's game. So we keep an eye on everything. All
right, Final Four. We'll pick your brain here on one of them. Who's the best team? That would be the one other thing. Before you say who you maybe like out of the Final Four. Bama is kind of like the Patriots and the Broncos are currently in the NFL. It seems whatever you hang, instantly you're going to get bet on Bama, right? That number went from 9.5. It went up to 10. There's been a little buyback. Would you anticipate that number to go back up when we get close to kickoff.
Absolutely. The public loves Bama. The public loves Saban. They will bet Bama, and that number will definitely go back up as all the square money comes in towards the game time. Bama's a great team, but you know what? You give Meyer a month to plan on this game, man.
I was just going to follow up on that. Isn't that the X factor in this game? I mean, the fact what they pulled off with a week to get ready for Wisconsin with the third quarterback. But there's the back to the question: what's a coach worth? We know what Saban can do, but now he's facing Urban Meyer with time to prepare.
Right. Hey, being 9.5, 10 on the game, you got to be careful. This team's got a long time to prepare for the Crimson Tide, and Bama's a great team. We all know that, but Ohio State's been flying under the radar all season long with injuries to the quarterback. 1, 2, 3, third quarterback now, and man, they were getting 4 points against Wisconsin. And they said, they slapped them right in the face and said, "Take your 4 points, and we'll just kick your ass by 52."
Well, it's funny. I was just going to say, well, is it Bama again? It's like, well, wait a minute. It was Florida State last year. You talk about a team going under the radar. It's a mini miracle. But at some point, don't you give them credit that they were always behind, yet they always found a way to win? And it seems like everybody just kind of poo-pooing them like they got no shot.
I know. That's another great example, man. They always got there at the end, and they always put up the W. So, got to hand it to them. They deserve to be there, and we'll see what happens now.
All right. Who do you think wins it?
I think it's Oregon. I like Oregon. I love Mariota at quarterback. I think he's a great quarterback, and he's two-dimensional. He can run the ball. He can pass the ball. He's a big, big threat, and I like the Ducks. I think they're the best out of the Final Four.
And just over here to the side, Aaron Kessler, who do you think wins it?
Well, say Florida State. They haven't beat Jameis yet.
There you go.
Please. Who do you like?
I'm kind of rooting for Oregon, but I got a funny feeling Ohio State actually gives Bama a tussle here.
I think that's the best game by far.
Yeah.
I really do. So I think Oregon against either Bama or Ohio State is going to be a great final, and we'll see how it goes. Now you watch Florida State win the whole thing.
Well, yeah, exactly. I just say hats off to you because you always think outside the box. You've had Masters. The Masters odds are always up, but you've done Masters matchups. Rory McIlroy Index. My God, you guys just put up Daytona 500 matchups. You do the college games of the year on June 7th. You know what? I mean, you stick your neck out there, but you know what? Hats off to you. If you're open, be willing to take the bet. Be willing to take that shot. But even if you take it in the shorts, maybe in the short term, you know what? You're getting foot traffic in here, right? I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Well, that's one good thing about the Gold Nugget Sportsbook, Brian. We're our own book. We don't have under an umbrella of 500 books. We're just one book. We make our own thing here. We do our own thing. We book our own thing. So I'm not scared to book any sport. I don't care what it is. I want to throw it up there. Cricket, rugby. I don't care what it is. If they're playing with a ball, it's going to be up at the Gold Nugget Sportsbook.
All right. Hey, listen, we really appreciate your time, and we'll just tell the people listening that when you come to Vegas, downtown is a different animal, and you've been here to watch it. It is so much fun. There's no better place when you're coming to Vegas to watch the first 4 days of March Madness in the Grand Ballroom at the Golden Nugget. It's awesome. But when you're in town, stop in, see Tony, Aaron. You got a great crew, Dory, Danielle. Sean, and everybody's got a smile on their face. It's a great place.
It's a fun place, man. We got
have
a lot
fun,
of
right?
Oh yeah, come downtown. Come see me. Let's talk to sports. Let me help you beat me.
Nice. All right, Toad. And best of luck in the bowl season.